For professional wrestlers having their debut matches in a new company, the main concern is probably just getting through it all without embarrassing themselves. To go from bell to bell without falling over, botching a move, or causing an injury should be considered a win, all things considered. Some wrestlers, however, go 10 better and actually score a major win by gaining a title. It doesn't happen all too often, but it's a surefire way for a performer to hit the ground running and for a promotion to get the wrestling world talking. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 wrestlers who won a title in their debut match. Join us. Number 10, Eminem. One of the great OVW success stories of the Ruthless Aggression era, Eminem arrived on SmackDown and immediately gave the Blue Brand's doubles scene a serious shot in the arm. Johnny Nitro and Joey Mercury, accompanied by the ever-lovely Melina, honed their act in WWE's developmental territory and worked a series of dark matches and house shows prior to being brought up to the main roster in April 2005. On the April 14th edition of SmackDown, Eminem debuted by crashing Carlito's Cabana and dropping guest Rey Mysterio with the snapshot. That set up a match the following week between Eminem, who had made quite an impression already with their red carpet entrance, and Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. Not only were Mercury and Nitro tackling two legends of the industry, but their bout would be for Rey and Eddie's WWE Tag Team Championships, and the match would take place in Madison Square Garden too. Seeking to give Eminem a debut match to remember while furthering the tensions between Mysterio and Guerrero, WWE booked the switch and Eminem won gold in their first televised outing. Number 9, Gail Kim. It's fair to say that in 2003, WWE's female division didn't have anywhere near the strength and depth that it does today, which is why there were only 7 women on hand for a Women's Championship Battle Royal on that year's June 30th edition of Raw. Things were even weaker on SmackDown, incidentally, with only Tori Wilson, Dawn Marie, and Nydia counting as female wrestlers on that show. Joining reigning champion Jazz, Victoria, Molly Holly, Trish Stratus, Ivory, and Jacqueline in the match was the debuting Gail Kim, who had been wrestling house show and dark matches for months. Her debut had been hyped up on television via weeks of vignettes, and she received a decent reaction from the live crowd, with the King and JR talking up her substantial potential on commentary. Regrettably, the match was a bit of a rushed cluster, with Jazz sustaining a legit injury in the opening moments and having to be taken out of the bout unplanned. Towards the end, Kim did get to show off a little bit and displayed some nice athleticism before last eliminating Victoria to bag her first and somehow only WWE title. Number 8, Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar was no stranger to fast success in pro wrestling. The man who was signed to the most lucrative developmental contract in WWE history was pushed to the moon from the get-go when he left Louisville, Kentucky and hit the road proper. The then youngest WWE champion in history beat The Rock for the belt in the main event of SummerSlam 2002 just 5 months after his TV debut, and he was on top from there until he left the company in March of 2004. After flirting with pro football, weighing up his options in MMA, and sorting out some legal issues with Vince McMahon's organization, the next big thing returned to wrestling in October 2005 for New Japan Pro Wrestling. A well-compensated special attraction who was only going to be booked for the biggest shows, Brock wasn't coming to Japan to mess about, and it was hardly a huge shock to see him add the promotion's top prize to his collection on his first night in. Lesnar downed Kazuyuki Fujita and Masahiro Chono in a Tokyo Dome main event to bag the IWGP Heavyweight title, becoming just the 6th foreigner at that time to achieve the feat. Number 7, Jerry Lynn. You know, WWE get a lot of stick for how they handled the invasion, and rightly so, but they at least tried to make some of the WCW and DCW lot look like big deals, at least when they initially showed up on WWE TV anyway. Mike Awesome won the Hardcore title thanks to the 24/7 rule, Tommy Dreamer and Rob Van Dam surprisingly emerged through the crowd, and DDP was revealed as the stalker of The Undertaker's wife Sarah, to name just a few. Former ECW champion Jerry Lynn, who made his televised WWE debut a couple of months before the invasion properly kicked off, also had a good first night. Chad Kroger's older brother debuted on the live episode of Sunday Night Heat that aired before the Backlash pay-per-view. He challenged Crash Holly to a light heavyweight title match, which the Houdini of Hardcore accepted. Lynn got the win in just a few minutes after rolling Crash up and holding the tights. Regrettably though, that's about as good as it got for Jerry in WWE, as he did much of nothing before dropping the strap to Jeff Hardy, after which he got injured and subsequently released. Number 6, Santino Marella. Though it was really done to help progress the feud between Bobby Lashley and Vince McMahon and Umaga, WWE seriously went all out when it came to Santino Marella's WWE debut. Santino, a former judo standout who had been toiling away in OVW, was plucked from the audience when WWE taped Raw there in Milan, Italy on April 16, 2007. Portraying a local fan, Marella was brought into the ring by the WWE chairman to take on the Intercontinental Champion Umaga in a title bout. Already he had a lot of things to latch onto, being the hometown hero, interacting with Vince, having a title match with a performer who had been in the biggest match at the most recent WrestleMania, but then it was kicked into overdrive when Lashley intervened in the Samoan Bulldozer's one-sided ass-kicking after Mr. McMahon had made the match no DQ, running in to spear his rival and hand the title to the unknown bloke in the bad jeans. It was a great piece of business, and Santino held on to the belt for 77 days before returning the favor to Umaga. Number 5, the Giant. Given his exceptional size and unique look, Paul White was always going to get opportunities in the wrestling business, but even he had to be completely amazed by how quickly they came and how big they were right off the bat. After trying and failing to get WWE's attention, White signed with WCW. He was made a member of the Dungeon of Doom stable and didn't wrestle for months and months before being thrust into a main event program with WCW heavyweight champion Hulk Hogan. The Giant was still new to the business and hadn't wrestled a single match on an actual show when he was booked in the 1995 Halloween Havoc headliner with the Hulkster. Not before a spot of sumo monster truck madness though, of course. Anyway, Giant managed to beat Hogan on the night via disqualification. The next night on Nitro though, it was revealed that Jimmy Hart, who had double-crossed Hogan the night before, had included a clause in the match contract that the title could change hands on a DQ, though WCW ended up nullifying the result and vacating the title a week later. Number 4, Paige. WWE obviously had big plans for Paige, as evidenced by the fact that they booked the young veteran to be the first person to win the NXT Women's Championship, the anti-diva winning a tournament ahead of the likes of Sasha Banks and Bayley in the summer of 2013. She held and defended that belt with pride before showing up on WWE television while it was still in her possession. She marched out on the April 7th, 2014 episode of Raw, which took place the night after WrestleMania 30, and after interrupting WWE Divas champion AJ Lee, the two squared off in an impromptu match which Paige won in quick fashion. It was a hell of a way to debut the NXT star, and she received a tremendous pop from the audience that knew her work and were thrilled to see her. As a consequence of the call-up, she was subsequently stripped of the NXT Women's Championship, though she likely didn't care as she focused on defending her new belt on WWE television and pay-per-view. Credit to AJ Lee too, who sold the moment like a pro and really helped put it over the top. Number 3, Carlito. Imagine if Carlito had debuted in a title match and lost. That wouldn't be very cool at all now, would it? Carlito had been educating us all about the meaning of the word for weeks via vignettes that hyped up his pending arrival on SmackDown. The Blue Brand was in dire need of fresh talent at the time, and they needed that talent to get over in a big way. The second-generation star from San Juan, Puerto Rico made his bow on the October 7th, 2004 episode of SmackDown, interrupting United States champion John Cena, dropping him with a DDT and spitting an apple in his face, setting up a title match in the main event. Not only had Cena just won the title a few days before at No Mercy, but this episode of SmackDown was taking place in his hometown. Carlito shocked the world by beating the red-hot Doctor of Thugonomics after smacking him with a chain. There was actually a good behind-the-scenes reason for the title change, mind, as Cena needed to fly to Australia to film the Marine. Number 2, Ted DiBiase Jr. At one point, it was believed that a new crop of second and third generation stars like Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, and Ted DiBiase Jr. were going to rule the business for many, many years to come. Well, Orton is still on top, and Cody did alright for himself, but the billion-dollar boy, while having a decent enough career, never managed to fulfill his potential or measure up to his father's legacy. WWE tried with him from the off, mind you, booking his first televised WWE match to take place on pay-per-view for the WWE Tag Team titles. At Night of Champions 2008, DiBiase was going to team up with a surprise partner of his choosing to take on Cody and Hardcore Holly. On the night, Ted explained that his partner was running late and that in the meantime he would take them on in a 2-on-1 handicap match, asking to start the bout with Spark Bob. Wouldn't you know it? It was a setup all along. Cody attacked his mentor, turning heel and somehow managing to win the titles from himself while also giving his new partner Ted Jr. a title win in his debut. Number 1, it's Christian. Christian is often unfairly compared with his former tag team partner and real-life childhood best friend, Edge. Both men had great Hall of Fame careers, but Christian didn't quite rack up as many accolades as his kayfabe brother and didn't quite receive the same level of push as the rated R superstar. When it comes to WWE debut matches, however, Christian has him beat. Because in Edge's debut, he ended up accidentally injuring his opponent within the opening exchanges, causing the bout, which aired live on Raw, to be stopped. Whereas Captain Charisma had a banger with Taka Michinoku at the Judgment Day 1998 pay-per-view. With Edge looking on from the crowd, Christian beat the Kaientai member with a roll-up to become the light heavyweight champion following almost 10 minutes of thrilling, high-flying action. He would only hold it for a few weeks before losing it to recurring joke Gilbert before settling into the role of lackey and tag team specialist for a while. But the fact that WWE booked him to capture gold on his first night indicates just how highly the company thought of him.